Round five was a lot of fun, but now it is done. We had two decisive games, and one of them will go for you right now. This is your round five rapid recap. And Fiona, it was Jorden van Foreest with the white pieces against Shakhriyar Mamedyarov. We saw a bit of a theoretical discussion out of the opening, and both players were moving quite quickly.
Indeed. Well, this was one of the games that we had most been looking forward to. Going into the round, it did not disappoint. Shakhriyar Mamedyarov, he played the Open Spanish, which he has been playing since before Jorden was even born.
Yes, but Jorden, he's full of good creative ideas. He strikes forward with a4, and after the pawn went to b4, bishop e3, bishop e7, normal looking development, and here comes the move a5. So Fiona, what's that all about?
Well, a5 is certainly a new idea. a5 opening up some lines for the bishop from b3. We see the black king still stuck in the center for now. So that's one of the ideas. The question, of course, when you make a committed pawn move like a5, is that going to be a strength? Is it going to be a weakness?
That's really a good point, because the pawn on a6 stuck in place, but that pawn on a5, we can't forget about that. If you're not looking, that pawn can be gathered. So the king castled, got out of the way of that bishop a4 pin. We saw queen d3. The knight came to c5. The bishop took. It was a trade over here. And things started to get spicy at this moment, where after c3, knight e7, knight 2, we saw it takes, and then bishop a7. So Fiona, an imbalance. It's a knight against a bishop. White has that knight, and he tried to use it right now.
Jorden brought his knight indeed to the center, to d4. Shakhriyar said, I'm not going to give up my bishop here so easily, dropped the bishop back to d7, and now things started getting spicy. Jorden bringing the second knight into the game, into f3, and after c5, it looks like the knight on d4 is under attack, but what did Jorden say?
Yeah, the knight is under attack. If it moves, then in comes c4 with a fork of queen and bishop. He said, let's go e6. And Mamedyarov, he's too smart to make this mistake. F takes e6 would have been a huge blunder, because the knight jumps out to g5. I don't care about my knight on d4. Checkmate is more important. If you stop the checkmate with a move like g6, then white can just take this pawn on e6. Knight takes e6. Forks the queen and the rook. White wins material and would have won the game. So no, he was not going to be fooled by this e6 move. Bishop e8 was really nice.
Bishop e8, a very nice touch indeed. Jorden still trying to go for the same idea, knight g5 anyway, threatening checkmate on h7. Shakhriyar playing this move, f5, closing the diagonal, and now knight f7, a slightly surprising move.
It was very surprising, and Black's response was both brilliant and surprising as well, because bishop takes f7, that's the move you want to play. Let's trade 3 points for 3 points, and then I win your pawn. But we were talking about how the knight is under attack, and c4 is also a threat. Knight e6 takes care of both at the same time. The queen's under attack. That means white has enough time to avoid this pawn push to c4, and as you see, white is actually doing quite decently. So instead of this, rook takes f7, a temporary sacrifice, because after pawn takes, bishop takes, no longer do you have the e6 square. And Fiona, after knight f5, it was Black's turn to strike.
Indeed, now Black went c4, forking the queen and the bishop. White has nothing better than to capture on c4, but very soon, well, now Jorden is going to find himself in a position where he just has a material deficit, with Shakhriyar getting the 2 pieces, and he found a clever way to do this. Does he take on c4 immediately? No, he takes on f5 first.
Right, because taking on c4 allows queen takes d8 check, removing the guard of the knight on e7. So if the rook takes queen, knight takes e7, white is ahead in exchange and would be for choice. So instead of this, knight takes f5, and now after bishop takes a6, knight came to d6, the queen moved, the bishop moved as well, and now the a5 pawn collapses. But Fiona, we were talking during the game that at this point right here, Black is surely better, but how much better was the big question.
Well, what you were pointing out is if Jorden could manage to get rid of the queenside pawns, then he might have good chances for survival. But I think Mamedyarov, he did a great job making sure that d pawn was going nowhere.
He did. He said, I'm going to keep that one safe and sound. And we have to give Jorden credit because this move c4, it is a pawn sacrifice, but it is a great idea. And to Mamedyarov's credit, he reacts perfectly after bishop h7. He doesn't take because after queen f7, h5, e8, c4, all under threat, he makes this move king f8. And Fiona, this is where things went wrong for Jorden.
Yeah, now after, in this situation, Jorden went bishop to g6, and well, threatening mate on f7. Shahriar said none of that. He interposed the knight on f6, and after the exchange on f7, this was the moment where we talked about, could Jorden have saved the day here instead of rook c1, the move which he played in the game? What was queen b7 check?
You know, queen b7 check is the only move, but it's not just about the move. The follow-ups are really, really wild. Black's best try is to retreat this bishop to e7, I think, because after the bishop comes to e7 here, it looks like rook c1 gets this pawn, but there's a tricky move, knight d5, where white has to be very careful. Free pawns are not always free. Rook takes e4 would have been a blunder because queen e1 check, the king needs to stay attached to this pawn f2, but after king g2, there's this brilliant shot, knight e3 check, forking the king and the rook. That's a free knight, right? Pawn takes e3, queen e2 check. Now we for sure win the rook. There's nothing white could do, and then black would have gone to win this game. So instead of taking that pawn right away on the c4 square, white has this move queen to c8. If black tries to keep this pawn with c3, the queen comes into f5 check. It's all wild, but there's pins here, attacks here. The h5 pawn is threatened as well. So it's a dynamically level position, but still extremely complicated.
Yeah, and during the game, while we were live, we were wondering, why didn't Jorden go for this check? But after looking through these lines in more detail, I think it is an understandable decision. He went for rook c1, but now Shahriar Mamedyarov found a series of very nice moves, starting with queen c7, defending the pawn on c4 indirectly because white cannot capture it. There is a discovery tactic. If rook c4, bishop takes f2 check, would end the game as the rook on c4 isn't defended. So here things got difficult for Jorden.
They did. He went king g2, renewing the threat of rook takes c4, but it's too late. Bishop comes to d4, and after the queen ventures into enemy territory, c3, it's on a protected square. Now the bishop on d4 both protects c3 and attacks f2, and after a few more moves here, it was clear that Mamedyarov would not have enough, so the queen went around queen b7 check. f3 was played. That's not a good thing for this white king. And after a few more moves, Fiona, the queen went to the first rank, and the queen can't take on d4 because the rook on c2 was hanging.
Yeah, Jorden all tied up here. A few more moves were played, but it was soon the end. Queen f5, bishop e3. The king tried to hide on h3, but after queen d1, Jorden threw in the towel here. There's just nothing he can do. The king is safe on h6. That pawn on c3 is going to decide the game, and the king on h3 is hopeless. So, Robert, what a game by Shahriar Mamedyarov.
It really was an amazing game. And I normally don't do this, but I just want to rewind 1 second because I'm still going through various possibilities in my head at that moment when queen b7 was possible, right? That's where, according to the eval bar, things went away from white. And as you see, it's creeping back up. It's creeping back up. It's giving white these chances. And just one more variation that came to mind here is, let's say bishop e7, rook c1, pawn c3, queen b3 check. We're getting that pawn. Knight d5 protects the pawn. Rook d1 looks really scary. But then after king e6, somehow this position remains pretty good for black. And I understand why Jorden did not play queen to b7. All of these lines give black good chances. The pawn on c3 is scary. So with all that in mind, the game did conclude in Mamedyarov's favor at the end. Let's get to the very end of the game here with the queen on d1. That was a win for Mamedyarov. He's in the tie for first, and that was your round 5 rapid recap.
Robert, what a day it has been here. The updated standings are ready. So there's our three-way tie at the top with Shahriar Mamedyarov. You've just seen the rapid recap of the day, propulsing him to the top, where he is joining Vidit Gujrati and Richard Rapport, and behind them 2 players on 3 out of 5, Magnus Carlsen and Andrei Yesipenko.
Yeah, it's a tight race at the top. 3 players in first, and then, as you mentioned, those 2 players just a half point behind. So in a single game, there could be new leaders if the current ones lose and the people chasing win. So Fiona, we look at round 6. Of course, Magnus Carlsen.
It's gonna be your last day. I'm already sad.
Well, I honestly forgot about that. So you reminded me that tomorrow is my 6th and final day of commentary. Daniel Naroditsky will replace me. But as we look at these pairings, Magnus Carlsen against Richard Rapport, we have Fabiano Caruana against Anish Giri. I mean, just all the way down through and through, these pairings are awesome.
Yeah, I think we're absolutely in for a treat here. Fabiano against Anish, as you mentioned. Also Mamedyarov against Grandelius. The Russian clash, Dubov against Yesipenko. Vidit, he will be playing against Jan-Krzysztof Duda, who's looking to come back to the top. So much action to look forward to tomorrow. I'm really looking forward to it. Here's the schedule. So we'll be back same place, same time, 2 p.m. Central European time. That's 5 a.m. Pacific. And yeah, Robert, what a day. And I'll leave you final words. I'm lost for words.
I think the most surprising thing of the day is that we only had 2 decisive results. We saw 7 fascinating games where every single player in this field was trying their best to score a point. Games that ended in draws doesn't mean that they were not entertaining. They certainly were. So Fiona, 2 wins this round. Mamedyarov, Rapport, they're in a tie for first with Vidit Gujrathi, who held nicely with the black pieces against Anish Giri. I think the 3 players in first place deserve to be there, but with so many rounds remaining, 8 to be precise, it's a long tournament ahead.
Absolutely. A lot can still happen. I'm sure we will see some changes at the top, but agreed with you, the 3 players at the top deserve to be there. Tomorrow we'll find out, can they stay there? Can they increase the lead? Will players catch them? So much to look forward to. We will look forward to seeing you then. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you, Robert, for being here by my side. Have a good one and see you all tomorrow.